Welcome back into the show. Dr. Justin Anderson, Cut the Killer Carbs. That's right, Metabolic Coaching. Check out the website, metaboliccoaching.net. Of course, along the way, if you have any questions, feel free to give us a call at any time throughout the broadcast, 745-5800, 745-5800. You can always text in as well, 806-745-5800, right there on the text line. So let me say good morning once again to Dr. Justin Anderson. How are you, sir?
Good morning. I'm fabulous, Wade.
Good to
I think I'm better than you are.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I'm a little bit out of it this morning. I'm kind of like, oh. And I think because I ate too many carbs. I don't know. I'm kind of,
It happens to the best of us.
I'll tell you what. Does it ever do that to some people where, you know, over the past 3 or 4 weeks, I've been doing really well and losing some weight and all that. Then this weekend, I just kind of went, hog wild. And then I feel like this morning, and I'm not fasting currently. You know, of course, the last 4 or 5 weeks I would fast 24, 48 hours at a whack and all that. Not doing it this week. I thought, well, you know, and so, but yeah, this morning I woke up and I thought, man, the room is spinning around. I just kind of feel all kind of out of it, but I don't know, because again, a lot of times it has to do with food.
Well, there's several books that I really like, and one of them is called Keto Adapted. Anybody who's interested in losing weight, feeling better, lowering inflammation on a low carbohydrate diet should check out the book Keto Adapted. It's by a lady named Maria Emmerich. And in that book, she really discusses some of the effect that sugars and carbohydrates have on the immune system. And when your body spends a lot of time processing sugar and carbohydrates, then it basically uses up some of the minerals that your body could be using to fight infection or disease or the common cold. In fact, I hear from clients pretty frequently that while they've been on the program doing low carb, and say they'll do it for 6 months or a year, and they'll say, you know, usually I get bronchitis 3 times a year, but this year I haven't had it. Or I'll get, you know, a cold or whatever it is, you know, pick everything up from the kids, but this year I haven't had it. And so I do think that eating a very low carbohydrate diet where you're avoiding the sugars, the refined grains, and the wheats, that kind of diet does help your immune system, because your body spends less of its resources trying to detoxify high blood sugars, and it can spend more time fighting viruses and bacteria and other things that can make you sick.
Yeah. I think that's absolutely true, because then your body, and then if you've been doing it for a while and then you kind of slip, if you will, you get back into that mode, then your body goes, hey, what's up with that? We were doing great, and now not so much.
A lot of people, once they get into a low carbohydrate diet and they feel better, when they slip, they don't necessarily get sick. But when they slip, they feel, I'm nauseated, bloating. And by slip, I mean, a common story is we were going out of town, and so on our way out of town we just grabbed burgers, and I decided I'd eat the bun because I was driving. Or we got burritos, I decided I was going to eat the tortillas because I was driving. And they'll say, by the time I got to post, I mean, I just felt nauseated, bloated, and low energy, and they kind of feel like that for a couple of days. Yeah. And we had some sort of family event, and ice cream is not on the diet, right? Because ice cream is very high in carbohydrates. It's got a lot of sugar. But at this family event, I had some ice cream, and I was on the sofa at 8 p.m. You know, I wasn't nauseous, but I just wanted to go to sleep. I was exhausted and ready to go to sleep, because that's kind of the effect that the sugar has. And what people start to realize once they switch over to eating a very low carbohydrate diet is that they were feeling like that all the time. They had that constant state of fatigue and exhaustion and tiredness and wanting to take a nap. They were like that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
And just thought that was just the way it is.
They thought that was normal, and they didn't realize that it was actually their diet. It was actually the food. It's not their diet. It's the food that was doing it to them. And so once they cut out the sugar, the wheat, the gluten, and they lower the carbohydrates in the diet, they feel better. And so if there is something like a slip up or a family get together or Thanksgiving or whatever, when they fall off the wagon, or they And I don't mean it in a negative way to fall off the wagon, because the truth is, like,
Right.
sometimes you're going to celebrate. And what I say is, if it's your birthday and you decide, hey, I'm going to have a slice of birthday cake or ice cream or whatever today, then that's a decision that you can make. But what you don't want to do is say, yeah, it's my birthday, it's my brother's birthday, it's all my grandkids' birthdays, it's somebody at the office birthday, because then it's, every other day or twice a week, and that will completely throw off any weight loss. In fact, I saw a study just a couple of days ago, and in that study it showed how basically the combination, this diet is called LCHF. It's low carbohydrate, high fat. And low carbohydrate, high fat helps you lose weight, helps your blood pressure get better, your diabetes get better. You can get off some of your blood pressure, diabetes medication. So that combination of low carb, high fat does great for all that. But some people, they'll do high carb, high fat. And high carb, high fat, that combination, that's the typical American diet. That combination is horrible for you because it makes your blood sugars even worse. It causes weight gain. So you have to remember both of the parts. There's both the low carbohydrate and the high fat that go together. And that is what helps people to lose weight and feel better.
Well, for years we always thought it was, normal carbs, which normal carbs, by the way, for the average American, as you've said before, is around 200 grams a day.
It's a lot.
It's a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there has been, well, okay, so that's okay, but go with the low-fat diet.
Mm-hmm.
The low-fat diet with a high carb doesn't work either.
Right, and that doesn't work either, because as long as you're eating the bread, the pasta, the tortillas, the French fries, all of those carbohydrate foods, your body turns all of those directly into sugar. And when it turns them into sugar, your body makes insulin to pack that sugar away, and it packs it away in your fat tissue. So it's and that whole process of taking carbohydrates and storing them in the fat creates a lot of triglycerides. So you end up with high triglycerides. It doesn't require HDL. And since it doesn't require HDL, you have low HDL, which is low good cholesterol. And so you end up with these heart disease risk factors like high triglycerides, low HDL, because of that high sugar, high carb diet. And you add fat onto it, and that just, you add high fat
Exacerbates
onto it, it just
everything.
makes it all worse.
It does.
Mm-hmm.
But forever we always had been told that the best thing to do is eat a low-fat diet, but eat 5 or 6 meals a day,
Yeah.
and you'll magically lose weight. And it doesn't work like that, right?
Well, mathematically, the thing is that mathematically, they say a calorie is a calorie is a calorie. And so if fat has less calories in it than do carbohydrates. And so mathematically, they may say, well, if you eat less fat, then that means you'll eat less calories. And if you eat less calories, you should lose weight. Unfortunately, the human body doesn't count calories. The human body is a complex hormonal machine. And a calorie of coconut oil is totally different from a calorie of table sugar. Because the coconut oil, your body's going to turn 60% of that. Well, 60% is medium chain triglycerides. And so it'll turn that directly into ketones. Your body will burn the ketones. That's all your body can do with the ketones. It can't store them. So it can burn them. Well, anyway, it can burn them. You can actually, if you eat extra fat on a low carbohydrate diet, it can pass through in your stool. It just goes out of your body, and it's not stored in your body at all. Or it can come off in your breath. I mean, you can breathe off calories. Just by breathing, you can lose calories. And so that's kind of the wonder of it. It's called a ketogenic diet because you make ketones. You can breathe off your ketones. And that's what your body would do with coconut oil. But sugar, your body, half of the sugar molecules turned into blood sugar, which is glucose, which raises your insulin level and tells your body to store fat. The other half of the sugar molecule is fructose, and your body can't burn fructose. It can't burn it, and it can't get rid of it. So what it has to do is store it, and it turns all the fructose into triglycerides. And triglyceride is a fat storage molecule. So, I mean, your body treats a calorie from different sources totally different. A calorie from coconut oil is totally different from a calorie of sugar. And the carbohydrates bread, potato, pasta, those are all turned into glucose, which is the same thing as blood sugar, raises your blood sugar, raises your insulin levels, tells you to store fat. You can burn some of the glucose, but from a meal, maybe you can burn 5% of the glucose, and 95% of it you got to store. And so it's turned into triglycerides, and it gets stored as fat. So a calorie is not a calorie. Your body is a complex hormonal machine. And when I very first started teaching this course, I called it, it's called Metabolic Coaching. You can read about it on the website, metabolic-coaching.net. But I originally kind of called it metabolic systems, metabolic systems dieting, because it deals with the way that your entire metabolism in your body works. It's not just a numbers game. A calorie is a calorie.
Well, what about this whole idea? And I've seen articles on or read some literature on the fact that, oh well, we have so many fat cells in our body, and sometimes that those are activated depending on our diet, and if our diet is bad, it'll activate the fat cells come alive. And what about that? Is there any truth to that? Is you're born with a certain amount of fat cells? Others may have more. Some obviously have less, and I don't know.
I don't know for sure about that, but I do know that there are things that influence your fat cells. That number one, it's what you eat, because what you eat is going to activate your fat cells to either store fat or activate your cells to release fat. You get on a low carbohydrate ketogenic diet, those fat cells release fat. One of the things that happens to people when they get on the diet is sometimes they'll have this thing called the whoosh phenomenon, which just means they're doing the diet, they're staying at less than 20 net carbs a day, day in and day out. Their weight will stay about the same for like 4 days. And then all of a sudden the next day they wake up and they've lost 2 pounds and they keep it off. And then it stays the same 4 days. And that's thought to be the fat cells are releasing fat, but they're holding on to water because they're not quite ready. They're not quite ready to shrink yet, or they're not quite ready to die yet. So they're losing their fat, but they're holding on to water, and then eventually they say, okay, well, we're not going to need to get bigger anytime soon, so they get rid of the water, and whoosh, a couple of pounds comes off. Another thing is that the bacteria that's in your colon, the bacteria that's in your digestive system, it has a big effect on diabetes, weight gain, insulin sensitivity. In fact, I just read a study that and this is going to sound weird or sound gross, but they can do what's called a fecal matter transplant, which means they take poop. Can you say that on the radio?
Sure.
Okay. So they take poop from a skinny person who's healthy, who's non-diabetic. They give it to a person who is overweight, type 2 diabetic, very insulin resistant. And then after they do the fecal matter transplant, they can test the diabetic's insulin resistance, and it improves. And they've identified some of the strains of bacteria that cause this improvement. And I don't know of a way in particular that you can get these particular strains in some sort of probiotic. But it does point out the importance of the bacteria that you have in your digestive tract affects whether or not you're going to be overweight or not. And so what I recommend, and this is from a discussion in the email with the client just a day or two ago, I recommend, number one, that people take some sort of soluble fiber, and they take it every day. And that's because the good bacteria, they eat soluble fiber. And the soluble fiber, I usually take a mixture of powdered psyllium husk, plus, it's like 50% powdered psyllium husk with 50% milled flaxseed. You just mix those together, and you can take a teaspoon at night. If you want to be more aggressive about it, you can take a teaspoon with each meal. And that feeds the good bacteria, which is the good bacteria that helps you with weight loss and insulin sensitivity. They eat that fiber. You can also add on to that glucomannan. So you can do equal parts of glucomannan powder plus powdered psyllium husk plus milled flaxseed, and take that at night, or take a teaspoon with each meal throughout the day. And the purpose is not to, some people take fiber to regulate their digestion or for constipation or all that sort of thing. But that's not the purpose here. The purpose here is to provide food. It's like fertilizer. It's like plant food for your good bacteria that lives in your digestive tract. Another thing you can do to help the good bacteria is to stop drinking sodas with artificial sweeteners, because a lot of these artificial sweeteners, they change the bacteria in your digestive tract because the bacteria take it up, but they can't digest it and they end up dying. And so it kills the good bacteria in your digestive tract. So you can take fiber every day. You can avoid diet sodas and artificial sweeteners. You can also add on fermented foods, and I know Dr. Ben talks about fermented foods. Bubby's sauerkraut, Bubby's pickles, or kimchi. And the reason to buy the Bubby's brand is because they're actually fermented and they have the bacteria in them that fermented the pickle or the sauerkraut. That changes the bacteria in the gut. Apple cider vinegar also contains, if you use the raw apple cider vinegar that has the sediment in the bottom, that contains the bacteria that made the vinegar, and that changes your bacteria. So all of those are strategies to help change the bacteria away from the kind that causes weight gain and toward the kind that is helpful. And kefir is another thing. You can take a little kefir every day. And kefir tends to be high in carbohydrates, but the funny thing about yogurt and kefir is the way that carbohydrates are calculated, they're not necessarily as high in carbohydrates as what the label says, but they're, the way that they have to be calculated for the label just it says that it's high in carbohydrates because you can only list things as carbohydrates, protein, fiber, or fat. So you were going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, what about, though, that, you know, because I'm a big salad eater. I like to eat salad, and I don't eat iceberg lettuce. I have spinach and Brussels sprouts and broccoli and cauliflower, that kind of stuff. Does that help as far as what you're talking about?
Yes, because those sort of green leafy vegetables are going to contain both insoluble fiber, which is just roughage, and they contain some soluble fiber. So yes, it helps with that. By eating green leafy vegetables every day, you change the population of your bacteria in your digestive tract so that they are bacteria that like to eat green leafy vegetables. And so it's a good thing. And I'll tell you, as far as regulating digestion, some people will say, you know, they suffer from constipation, and the combination of taking the powdered psyllium husk plus milled flaxseed and eating green leafy vegetables, that combination right there just gets rid of the problem, period.
Yeah, some I've known have had that issue, and they'll say, well, I'll just take a lot of magnesium to compensate. And I don't know. I mean, I know magnesium's good for you, but just to take it to a point to where you actually have diarrhea, I don't.
Yeah,
I mean,
you know, magnesium it works as a stimulant, and so it works as a stimulant, and so it doesn't. I don't think it necessarily addresses the problem, but I mean, you know, I agree with you. I mean, magnesium is good for you. At the same time, a combination of green leafy vegetables plus soluble fiber. I mean, that way you're doing something that's great.
You're
for
actually
you.
getting the roughage that you need.
And I don't know that the magnesium necessarily, you know, is going to change the way your bacteria are in your digestive tract. And I think
No, probably not. Probably not. But it's an interesting thought because you know, some people have that problem. I do not, fortunately. But people that do,
Great, Wade.
that would
That's
be
great.
that's rough.
Good.
I mean,
Thanks
it's
for
rough
sharing.
if you can't, you know. But I will tell you that when I'm doing intermittent fasting, that becomes an issue sometimes with intermittent fasting, where, you know, you start fasting and then, you know, you're in day 2 and you're like, man, I hadn't got, you know, I haven't gone to the bathroom at all. You know, and I mean, it's kind of weird.
I'll tell you another thing about the fasting is that there are, I can't remember the name of the receptor, but it's a fasting receptor or fasting hormone that's made in your digestive tract. So those good bacteria that tell your body to burn fat, those good bacteria, they produce butyrate. The butyrate turns on that receptor, and by turning on that receptor, the bacteria actually tell your body to burn fat. And it's a fast. The name of the, I'll look it up. The name of the receptor is like a fasting receptor, and so you turn that on by fasting. So you can turn it on by fasting, or you turn it on by changing the bacteria.
Yeah. Well, I've noticed though that again, the low carb and fasting has been really good, and it really has been amazing to do that for the last 3 or 4 weeks, and then really just eat like a hog for like 2 or 3 days, and then after that feel crummy.
This is what it's called.
That's amazing to me.
Yeah.
But anyway, what's it called?
It's called fasting-induced adipose factor.
Okay.
It's connected with your gut bacteria. It's regulated by those bacteria, and it's upregulated. It's increased during fasting. So.
Interesting. Yeah, it's fascinating to me, and it comes back down to, man, I just don't feel good. I'm foggy. I'm kind of not feeling great, and I know exactly what it is now. It's curious to me, and I would have never have thought of this kind of stuff 6 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
You just kind of bump along, and I'm always sleepy at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I've got this, or I'm feeling a little bit slow, and I'll go eat something. I feel kind of good, or my goodness, think about all the people grabbing a Monster drink or whatever to try to get more energy.
Yeah, man.
I mean, it's just insane.
I mean, and the truth is, like, I've been there. I felt that way. And I drank caffeine all day long, up until I drank caffeine at lunch. I drank caffeine at dinner. I was drinking tea after dinner, and just because I wanted to be awake, I wanted to feel better. I wanted more energy. Not realizing that really it was the carbohydrates and the sugar in my diet that were causing the problem that I was trying to cover up with more caffeine. And then once I cut the carbohydrates out of the diet, my energy level went up. I felt so much better. I realized it wasn't, you're not suffering from a lack of caffeine that's causing you to feel low energy, right?
Right.
And so, but even doing low carb, several years into it, I kind of fell into the trap of drinking caffeine all day. And so my recommendation is, if you're going to drink coffee or caffeine, you can have it in the morning, you can have it up until noon, and then stop. Because what happens is, if you have it after noon, the half-life of the caffeine is 8 hours. So that cup of coffee or the iced tea or the Diet Coke or whatever that you have at dinner, it's still there, along with half of the caffeine from lunch and along with a fourth of the caffeine from breakfast, essentially. And so you go to bed and it's like you just had 2 cups of coffee.
And your brain won't shut off.
Yeah, your brain won't shut off. It messes up your sleep. And one of the things that helps people with weight loss is to sleep, because you need to sleep better. Not sleeping enough, let's say you only sleep 4 hours a night or 6 hours a night, that's stressful for your body. And when it's stressful, you release a lot of cortisol, and cortisol can cause you to hold on to the weight also. So sleeping reduces stress. Reducing stress can help with your weight loss.
Yeah, that's a great point. Mm-hmm. Sleeping is so critically important. All right, we'll take a quick break. We'll come right back. Stick around. We got plenty to go right here on Metabolic Coaching today. Welcome back into the show. Cut the Killer Carbs. Check us out on Facebook and, of course, metabolic-coaching.net. You can check us out on the web there, metabolic-coaching.net. Dr. Justin Anderson here on the show with us this morning, talking about weight loss and how we can get it done for you and how you can get it done for yourself by educating yourself on what's really going on. But a lot of different fads out there, a lot of different things, a lot of pills and potions. Mm-hmm. I think one of the ones that are raging right now around social media is the old, hey, let's try the vinegar and cinnamon and honey deal and lemon juice. That one I don't know about, but I did see that as a posting on one of your threads. And so it's kind of interesting. I did it a couple of times. I didn't stick with it. I don't know. Again, if you mix it with an 8-ounce glass of water, like the apple cider vinegar you're talking about, and organic lemon juice, and it's about a tablespoon for each for the vinegar as lemon juice, and then about a teaspoon of cinnamon. And then this particular said a tablespoon of honey, but I didn't want to put the honey in there. I think they do that as a sweetener, so it would taste better. But I would just muscle it down and drink it. But I did it a few times. I didn't stick with it. I don't know. Maybe if I'd have done it for a few weeks just to see. But here's the thing about all this stuff. It's really kind of funny in the sense that you could try it. It may work for you, but it may not work for the next guy.
Yeah.
That's the problem with that kind of stuff that you see.
So that's why, in general, the metabolic coaching program is, we start off with cut the carbs, and cut the killer carbs, and they're these sugars and refined carbohydrates. I call them killer carbs because they give you high blood pressure, they mess up your cholesterol, they give you diabetes, they cause you to be overweight, and those are the things that kill most Americans. So cut the carbohydrates out. You can increase the fats. The healthy fats would be those. Any fat's going to be a healthy fat as long as you avoid hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated, and stay away from omega-6 fats, which are vegetable oils, cottonseed oil, peanut oil. So avoid omega-6, avoid hydrogenated vegetable oils. And so that's kind of the basis of the whole deal, because that's what really works for most people. You get down to less than 20 net carbohydrates a day. You start losing weight, your blood sugars get better, you start getting off some of your blood sugar medication, some of your blood pressure medication under the supervision of your doctor. And so all of that's great. But then, yeah, the stuff that works or doesn't work, that's for people who get stuck, really. And so I keep everything very simple. It's about cutting the carbohydrates. But then let's say you've lost 40 pounds. And after you've lost 40 pounds, you want to lose another 40, but you're stuck and you haven't lost weight for a couple of months. Then we really start to address, well, is it your gut bacteria? Or do you need to add in apple cider vinegar? The thing about apple cider vinegar at night is that it's been shown to improve blood sugars in the morning for diabetics. So it decreases blood sugar spikes. And so one of the things that I take every night, I take a tablespoon or two of apple cider vinegar. I take the fiber to feed my good bacteria.
You
I
put
take
it in
a
water
probiotic.
or do you just straight?
I shoot it like Knob Creek, Kentucky bourbon. Yeah.
Do you really?
Well, what I do is I shoot it and I immediately chase it with water. So I'll have a couple of tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. I drink it quickly. You have to chase it with water because either A, you mix it with water to dilute it, or B, you chase it with water because you don't want that acid to sit in your esophagus.
Yeah.
Because it sits in your esophagus, I mean, it will cause damage to your esophagus. It's not good for you. So I chase it with a big glass of water, or you can mix it.
Why not
and
just
drink
mix
it
it
dilute.
in there?
Because my wife likes the taste of diluted apple cider vinegar. And so they sell drinks. Like Bragg's will sell a drink that's just apple cider vinegar and water at
Yeah,
the
I've
store.
seen some of that.
And so
yeah.
my wife likes that. She'll get that from time to time. I don't really like it. I would much rather just shoot it, be done with it, drink some water to chase it, the end. I had one client one time, and she was somebody who lost weight, and then she was stuck, and so we worked through a bunch of these things. And she would eat the Bubby sauerkraut every day. She took the apple cider vinegar every day, but she said, I take it, but I don't like it. And I said, well, what is it? I said, just shoot it, And then I said, why don't you like it? And she said, it reminds me of Long John Silver's. Because they always had that vinegar on the table,
I like that malt vinegar.
Yeah, that malt vinegar.
I like it, though.
So, but anyway,
John Silver.
the great thing about her story is this, is that she wanted to lose weight so she could get pregnant. And then she lost the weight, she had the baby, she has happy, healthy baby. And that's one thing that younger people don't recognize. There's this condition called PCOS. PCOS is polycystic ovarian syndrome. Polycystic ovarian syndrome causes young, otherwise healthy women to be infertile. They can't have a baby. Well, PCOS is treated with a diabetes drug, metformin. That's because PCOS is an insulin sensitivity syndrome, an insulin sensitivity problem. And so we can put young, otherwise healthy, infertile women who are having trouble having babies, put them on a very low carbohydrate ketogenic diet. Their insulin sensitivity gets better, their PCOS gets better, then they can have a baby.
Is that because they're obese too? Are they usually the women that are in that
Most of them are overweight, and they're overweight. It's not their fault. They're overweight because they have they're insulin resistant, and their insulin resistance is what causes their PCOS. Their insulin resistance is.
But how do they get to the insulin resistant part? Just
the standard American
poor
diet.
diet?
Just the standard American diet.
And by the way, doctor, we're seeing this. It's everywhere.
Lots of them. Lots of these women. They have tried this. Some of it's the standard American diet, and some of it is a history of dieting with low-fat, high-carbohydrate diets, which makes the insulin resistance worse.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're trying to do what they can do. They're trying to get better, and it gets worse. And a lot of the older clients that I have that come, and maybe they have diabetes now, high blood pressure, obesity, heart disease, and all of these sort of things, they'll say, yeah, when I was younger, I had PCOS. So that PCOS early in life, when you're younger of childbearing age, that could be a harbinger of you're insulin resistant. So what's coming down the road is diabetes, obesity, high blood pressure, heart disease.
And I think I've asked you this before, but does the high triglyceride count, is that also kind of a warning bell saying you're getting insulin resistant? If you have high triglycerides, but your LDLs and HDLs are within quote unquote normal ranges and sugars and all that, but if you have high triglycerides, is that one of those deals that's saying, hey?
I'm not 100% sure. And the reason I'm not 100% sure is because the vegetable oils, right? Mm-hmm. So one thing to mention about the vegetable oils that contain the omega-6 fats is that there's a little experiment where they take college students and they feed them large amounts of vegetable oils. That's like vegetable oil, cottonseed oil, peanut oil, whatever. They become insulin resistant, and they start to get high triglycerides like that very day. I mean, they can develop it in a very short period of time. Insulin resistance and high triglycerides from the vegetable oils. That's why you avoid the vegetable oils if you want to lose weight. And your question was, is high triglycerides a harbinger of insulin resistance? And I'm not 100% sure, because there are other contributors to high triglycerides. There's carbohydrates in the diet. Those are turned into triglycerides.
Alcohol.
There's alcohol. It's turned into triglycerides. And there's fructose, which is fruit sugar, also found in table sugar, found in high fructose corn syrup, found in maple syrup. And so the fructose is turned into high triglycerides. So I would say that the two are definitely related, because the reason I call this program Metabolic Coaching is because it's designed to reverse the metabolic syndrome. And the metabolic syndrome is overweight with increased blood sugar, increased blood pressure, high triglycerides, and low HDL. You have to have 3 of the 5 to have, also is associated inflammation, but you have to have 3 of the 5 to be considered to have metabolic syndrome. And metabolic syndrome is a precursor to heart disease. And so it's all related, the high triglycerides and the insulin resistance and weight gain, etc.
But if you just have 1 of the 5, that may or may not be. But I would say if you have 1 of the 5 even, then you better be looking at what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you wouldn't have 1 of the 5.
Right.
And again, I'm speaking of myself here. Because that was where I was about a year ago in my last full blood workup physical exam. Was, your triglycerides are at 331. That's a little above normal. And I thought, well, that's the first time I've ever had anything like that before. And I kind of looked at it and thought, well, I don't feel bad necessarily.
This kind of abdominal weight, that's one of the criteria.
That's the wheat belly deal going.
That's one of the criteria for metabolic syndrome. And then you've got the high triglycerides. That's another criteria for metabolic syndrome. You said your HDL's fine, your blood pressure's fine. So it's one of those things to where if you keep doing what you've been doing that got you there, you're gonna keep creeping down the path, and you'll end up with the full metabolic syndrome. But if you do what you've been doing lately, which is decreasing the carbohydrates, doing some intermittent fasting, then you'll reverse things.
Yeah.
You reverse the triglycerides, reverse the abdominal weight, get rid of some of that, and then you'll be on the right track.
I think it's fascinating. I know that you had seen, or probably you did, this guy on YouTube that he did this experiment where he was like a really bodybuilder type guy, and he goes, I'm just going to do nothing but eat McDonald's for like 6 months or a year. So this guy ate nothing. That's all he had was McDonald's. And he gained a ton of weight and was
Yeah.
all just, and then he said, now I'm going to try to lose it all back. And the reason he did all that is because he always used to think when he was working with these people, he thought, well, how hard is it to lose weight? And he found out real quick, it is not easy. Once you reach a point where you're trying to lose weight and be healthy again, to gain that back, it's a tough deal. It's not like, okay. And this guy was, and he became real sick too while he was doing this experiment. Because, I mean, that food, give me a break.
And that's the deal with the metabolic coaching program, is that we put everybody on this low carbohydrate, high fat diet, and 90% of people, they're losing weight week by week. They're meeting their goals. Everything's great. Then 10% get stuck.
Yeah.
And so that's where the support comes in. And the support is clients can text me or email me, and I usually get back to them within 48 hours, whatever their questions are. We do weekly follow-up meetings, and we have follow-up meetings on Friday afternoons from 3:30 to 4:30, and follow-up meetings on Wednesday from 5:30 to 6:30. So we've got 2 sets of follow-ups for people who work and can't get away on Fridays. I encourage everyone we have people from California to New York City that take the online course, and I always encourage them to follow up with the radio show, because the radio show is going to be a place where they can get their questions answered. They can call in if they need to, if they have a question. And so the follow-up and the support is really what makes the thing different. It's different from just reading a diet book and saying, oh, I'm going to do the diet.
Yeah, speaking of, we've got some text coming in. And the question is canola oil a vegetable oil? Is canola oil a vegetable oil?
I have a nice little graphic, and I believe the answer is yes, but let's
double check
Let's
that?
consult the graphic to be sure. At my house, we make it real simple, and we just kind of stick to butter, the bacon drippings. That's butter, bacon drippings, and coconut oil. So we don't kind of
Yeah, my wife's not big on canola oil. Of course, she's a health coach. And
Okay, so
she says no on canola oil. She won't eat it.
Canola oil is 28% polyunsaturated fat. Okay, so these are so 28% omega-6s. So the worst of the vegetable oils: safflower 78%, soybean 60%, corn oil 57%, peanut 34%, canola 28%. So the thing about canola oil is that canola is kind of right on the borderline, because it's pretty high in the
At
omega-6
right.
inflammatory fats at 28%, but it's not the worst. Okay, so these are the things that are lowest in the omega-6. Coconut oil, only 2% omega-6s.
On coconut,
Coconut oil.
coconut oil.
Butter, only 4%. Beef tallow, 4%. That's what McDonald's used to fry their fries in before they switched over to vegetable oils. Palm oil, 10%. Olive oil, 11%. Lard, 12%. So you want to use coconut oil, lard, beef tallow, olive oil. Those are the ones that you go to. The canola oil is it's on the borderline at 28%. You're starting to get too high in the polyunsaturated fats. And then peanut, corn, soybean, safflower, those are too high in the omega-6 inflammatory fats.
Also, is butter better than margarine? I can say absolutely yes.
Right.
Margarine's really just kind of a fake plastic, isn't it?
Butter is better than margarine because most margarines are made with hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated trans fats. And natural fats have a certain structure, and that certain structure, your body can break them down and do things with them, and so that's great. The trans fats that are hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated, they have a different shape, and basically your body doesn't have the enzymes to break down that shape, and so those things get stuck. They get stuck in the arteries, they get stuck in your body. You can't get rid of them. And So they used to think, oh, saturated fat causes heart disease, and that's because they lumped in saturated fats are solid at room temperature, and they lumped in these man-made trans fats, these hydrogenated fats, with saturated fat because they're solid at room temperature. So they went into the saturated fat category. And when they compare that to unsaturated fats, they'd say, oh, well, look, these saturated fats cause heart disease. Well, if you break out the hydrogenated man-made fats, those are the ones that actually cause the heart disease. And you look at the people who eat the most saturated and the people who eat the most unsaturated, which are like liquids, they have the same rate of heart disease. Okay? But it's the trans fats that really increase the heart disease because your body can't handle those and doesn't know what to do with them.
Yeah. Back to something you said earlier, doctor, about the fructose, and you said something about that your body also doesn't know how to deal with that, and it just doesn't know how to store it, or it just kind of stores it, but it doesn't really know how to get rid of it or flush it out. Once you go through this process and you have a metabolic syndrome going on, but you get control of your health and you start taking action, does it eventually push it out? Eventually you do get rid of it, right?
Well, the fructose itself, the trans fats, I don't think you can get rid of the trans fats because
you don't think so ever?
I don't. If your body doesn't have some sort of enzyme or some sort of mechanism to really break it down and get rid of it, then I don't know how you're going to get rid of it. So I don't know how that would happen. The fructose, your body takes the fructose and it turns it into fat. So your body detoxifies fructose by turning it into fat. And one of the reasons that fructose is found in table sugar, high fructose corn syrup, maple syrup, fruit, all this stuff. Juices.
Yeah, there was a big story last night on ABC News about saying, oh, the guidelines. Do you see this?
Oh,
the guidelines, of course, 100% fruit juices. I guess the FDA now recommending kids younger than 1 don't have any.
The thing.
And then 4 to 6, you can have 4 ounces a day, and on, and they went up from there as you got older. But fruit juices are just terrible.
They're terrible. The fruit juice, even if it's 100% organic apple juice, 100% organic orange juice, it contains just as much sugar in it as a regular Coca-Cola. So it's just a fruit juice is like a Coca-Cola with a vitamin C tablet dropped in it. You know, and people make fun of people in the Appalachian Mountains. They have this thing. What's it called? Mountain Dew mouth, from kids drinking too much Mountain Dew. And they put Mountain Dew in their children's bottles sometimes, and there's special news reports that have been done on this. But really, I mean, the fruit juice it's just as bad. It's like it's like a Mountain Dew with the vitamin C tablet in it, and it makes perfect sense. The reason is this: because have you ever squeezed oranges to make fresh orange juice?
Not lately.
I mean,
I've done it before, but it's been a long time.
To make a glass of orange juice, you have to squeeze like 5 or 6 or 7
lot of work.
oranges.
Right.
And so you would never sit down at a sitting and say, all right, I'm going to eat 7 oranges. But every time you drink a glass of the fruit juice, like orange juice, that's what you're doing. You are taking in the equivalent amount of carbohydrates as you would get in 7 oranges.
Yeah, not good. Well, the sugars too. I mean, it's all about those sugars, and they will jack your sugar and that insulin. I'm always concentrating. Here's what I try to concentrate on.
Mm-hmm.
Following your program, one of the things that sticks out to me is just when in doubt, think, before I put that in my mouth and eat it, is that going to trigger an insulin spike? That's kind of what I focus in on. And so obviously, if I look at something, it's helped me actually to identify triggers and trigger type foods. Obviously, that's all your sweets, your breads, your pastas. Got it. We're talking about vegetables, meats. I like sardines, so if I'm hungry, I grab a can of sardines. That's good. Got great omega-3s, and people like, oh,
It's
those
great for your breath.
Yeah. Oh, those are disgusting. How can you eat those? But honestly, I love just having, good homemade ranch dressing with some cauliflower and a couple of slices of pickles and cheese and maybe a little can of sardines for a snack. I'm good with that. That for me is fine. If I want something like after dinner, maybe a couple hours after dinner or whatever. But I have noticed this too, and this is also kind of interesting, is that the more I get into this, the less I feel a need to snack.
Yeah.
And I found that kind of interesting too.
You,
And
that
one I'm not really for sure why that's happening.
Well, I'm for sure, Wade.
Okay, tell me why.
Well, that's what I'm here for, you know. I'm here to help.
Yes, but I mean, but even if it's a healthy
the,
snack, right? It's just like I'm not really.
The reason it happens is that when you eat carbohydrates, like let's say for a meal you have a burger with a bun or you have a burrito with a tortilla, that spikes the sugar, and 2 hours later the sugar's coming down.
Okay.
The sugar's coming down and crashing, and when it's coming down 2 hours later, you're hungry. And so when you're on a very low carbohydrate diet, the sugar stays even all the time. And since it stays even all the time, you're not hungry. So if you ever get that feeling like, oh, I got a snack, I need to eat something right now, think about what you ate 2 hours before. Because it's what you ate 2 hours before that's making you hungry now.
Yeah, and again, I go back to my earlier comment about watching for insulin spikes,
right?
Which will do that to you. And very guilty of that over the weekend. Good morning. Welcome to the show.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, doctor.
Hello. Good morning.
I was a while back diagnosed with some blood work with a deficiency in vitamin D3.
Yes, sir.
And they recommended taking supplements. But I'm wondering also, is there something in which foods could I eat to increase that?
You know, the interesting thing about vitamin D3 is that vitamin D3 is something that your body makes when you're in the sun. And so it's not necessarily something that you just get from your diet. Really, there was a Dr. Ben Edwards show several weeks ago when he talked about hair mineral analysis. And
I remember that show, yeah.
It was
Dr. Edwards, yeah.
That was a good show. And you know, during that show, they talked about a single vitamin deficiency like vitamin D3 is hard to tell you exactly what you should supplement with. So you can order a hair mineral analysis. I think it costs $150 or something that would tell you what is your overall mineral status, you know, not just your vitamin D3, but how does that integrate along with your calcium, your magnesium, potassium, etc. And so I just got an email yesterday from a client that said, well, should I take calcium supplementation? And it's hard to tell somebody just isolated, should they take calcium supplementation or should they take vitamin D supplementation. It would be good to know where you're starting from and start with the hair mineral analysis. That being said, I will say that in general, most Americans are deficient in vitamin D, and a reasonable supplement would be something like vitamin D3 plus vitamin K2 in combination.
Yeah, you can get those at the health food stores.
At the health food
those
store.
Those are good ones.
Because but the reason you might consider the hair mineral analysis is that some people have high vitamin D, some people have very high calcium, and if you take more vitamin D, then you're going to increase calcium, and that calcium can go into your arteries and harden your arteries. The D3 plus K2, the K2 helps the calcium go to the right place instead of going to the wrong place.
Oh, well, which foods contain vitamin D, or do they?
On the D3, yeah, your good, you know, hard cheeses are good sources of D3, that kind of thing, doctor, right? I mean, those are good. Some of your leafy vegetables like spinaches and stuff have it as well.
Okay, cheeses, greens,
yeah,
things like that would be a good source. Plus sunlight. Yeah, I don't get much sun. I'm retired. I stay inside a lot, so.
Yeah, but you don't need much, though. I mean, honestly, when we did it with Dr. Edwards on Monday's show, we talked about that, and he was talking about the fact that lots of studies coming out now that people just, you know, you need to get out and walk anyway, right? I mean, that's just part of it. But if you're out there just walking around for 10, 15, 20 minutes, doing a little bit of exercise, getting that sunlight, that's good.
But one of the issues, and all of this I've learned from Dr. Edwards, because you know, as far as what vitamins and mineral supplements you need to take, that's not really my expertise. My expertise is to get you to lose weight and get you off of some of your diabetes medication and that sort of thing.
I need that too.
If you wanted to do Well, one of the problems is you make the activated vitamin D3 in your skin when you're exposed to sun, and it gets secreted in the oil that's in your skin. And that oil, if it's allowed to sit on your skin for several days, you absorb the vitamin D3. But as Americans, we take a shower every day. And we take a shower with soap, we wash that oil off. And since we wash that oil off, it's not allowed to soak in and get absorbed. And so that's why, a lot of Americans do end up needing to have a vitamin D3 supplement, even if they do get sun.
But make sure you get it with the K2.
Yep, vitamin D3 plus K2.
Yeah, and you get that in a pill form.
If you want your full hair analysis, mineral analysis to give you a better idea where you're starting, you can just look up on the computer Dr. Rick Malter hair mineral analysis.
Okay, great. Well, thanks a lot. I appreciate that.
You're certainly welcome.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're vastly deficient in a lot of different things, but I think that's a good starting point to know, because I think so often that so many people just start just taking stuff thinking, oh, I might be deficient on this or that or this or that. And so I've always said, or I've said, I mean, back in the days when I did the health shows with Dr. Harlan Wright for many, many years, back in the 90s, he was saying all the time, take a very good natural vitamin, none of this Centrum Silver crap and all that. That stuff doesn't work. He said always take a good multivitamin, a good mineral, like a magnesium zinc combination, and along with maybe a good B vitamin. And he was really big about that. He goes, just to cover the foundations. He goes, and that way you're doing something good. But then after that, then that's a foundational approach to it. But then beyond that, if you've got certain specific issues going on, then you may have to adjust. But
different supplements.
Different supplements for different things. But I will tell you that, a lot of times what people fall into too is that, I mean, there's so many different things, and that's why we do these shows every week, is because
that's
hormonal changes. I mean, you start getting into hormones, and I mean that all bets are off. When your hormones are jacked up or your thyroid ain't working right, I mean, you can take all the supplements in the world. If you don't get that fixed, you're not gonna get fixed.
Well, and my overall thing is that so I know there's so many supplements that are supposed to be good for diabetes or blood sugar or blood pressure, whatever. And so people will come to the program and they're taking 10 different supplements that are supposed to fix all these problems. And they don't fix them. And so rather than spend all your money on all these supplements, the best thing to do, get on a very low carbohydrate, high fat diet, which resolves a whole bunch of these problems. And then after resolving a bunch of these problems, then, if it resolves 90% of your issues, then you can talk with your doctor, do some investigation. You can see a naturopathic doctor to see about what other supplements you might need to take. So I really think the foundation is cut the carbohydrates and sugars out of the diet. And then whatever you're left over with, that if you still have problems with whatever, then you can address those with vitamins and stuff.
I agree with that. But I also argue the fact that, I take a good vitamin supplement that's not really a vitamin. It's a natural reconstituted dehydrated form of a vitamin.
What kind do you take?
It's called Real Good, and they're just natural vitamins. They're actual fruits and veggies and all the things that are compacted down into one pill,
right? And
it's not synthetic, because the synthetic stuff is where I kind of go, yeah. And you can take that even on a low carb, and it's not going to doesn't spike your insulin,
right?
Because you got to be careful. Some of these supplements will spike insulin.
You have to be careful.
So you have to be careful with that. And so I like that vitamin. It's like a natural food type vitamin.
Yeah.
Very absorbable, and I've had really good success with that. So that's just me. Hey, Dr. Anderson, I appreciate it. Of course, metabolic-coaching.net. Check it out there on the web as well. Our telephone number, 448-0322, 448-0322, and Cut the Killer Carbs on Facebook. Of course, we'll see you back here next week on the show, and we appreciate you coming out, Doctor.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure as always.
All right, we'll see you next time around. Have a wonderful day, sir.
All right, you too, Wade.